Hi there, if you'd like to tell us what your name is, please.
My name is Howard Bargroff.
And could you tell us what you actually do?
What do I do? Blimey, what do I do? I'm a sound dubbing mixer, re-recording mixer, and I mix audio for all kinds of post, film, TV, commercials, anything.
Could you tell us for the views, could you explain how you actually got into where you are now? Your sort of a brief overview of your career path.
Yeah, it's I kind of fell into it. I started off as a technical engineer at Psalm Studios. Then I ended up as an assistant mixer at Psalm Studios and a house mixer. Then I left to go freelance, and through some inactivity due to a producer asked me to work with him and not working, I ended up getting a job at Dolby as a sound consultant, and went round to virtually every dubbing theatre in London, and walked into Pinewood and saw a cinema with a mixing desk in it and thought, this is fantastic. Decided that's what I wanted to do. Went back, became an assistant mixer at various dubbing theatres around London, and ended up graduating to just becoming a dubbing stroke re-recording mixer.
Could you give us a brief overview of your working day?
It depends on what bit I'm doing. So for a TV show, a mix on a TV show will generally take about 4 days. So the first day I'll be pre-mixing dialogues, so mixing all of the sync and the ADR and the crowd. The next day I'll be mixing all of the effects, atmospheres, spots, Foley, trying to make some reality. And then the third day I'll probably have the music come in, and I'll do some kind of vague final mix where everything comes together. Then on the fourth day, present that to the clients, play that to them and make their changes and the wants, wishes of the producer, editor, director. And then on the fifth day, generally do deliveries and playouts of various different versions.
Okay, because this is what the question that they all ask here, especially on the first year. What advice would you give people getting into the sound design, mixing, post-production and film? What would the best advice you could give them after a very good career, which you're only young? You're going,
I like you.
yeah. I mean, what would you say?
I suppose be true to yourself. It's quite cliched, isn't it, when you get into this bit? It's like, don't do it is one of the ones that you, but actually that's not true. It's a terrific job. Just be true and follow your heart a bit, and go with your instincts. I've found over the years that I've trusted my instincts more now than I did when I was young, even though it probably should be the other way around. Somehow I've thought, you know what, actually feeling a certain way does draw you into sometimes the right conclusion, especially with art. Follow your heart.
So I've got a couple of questions from myself. I've been researching you today. Actually, the best research I've done so far my first year. I'd like to say, what's the technical difficulties doing a drama compared to an action film?
The drama's got its own challenges, because action in a funny way is slightly easier because what you see is what you get, whereas drama can be much more it's much more subliminal. It can be much more psychological. So you're actually trying to play games. So for instance, Tinker Tailor, where there isn't any action, it was a very difficult job because it's set over about 2 or 3 different time periods, but they're not that far apart and they're all separated by a few years. So you've got to try and tell the story of different time zones with sound and concepts and stuff. So actually it's a different challenge as opposed to loads of sounds and making car crashes work above music and stuff.
Okay, brilliant. This is quite, because I'm a sound design student. Have you ever wanted to take as much sound out you want as possible in a scene, but you wasn't allowed to, but you knew it would make the scene better?
Well, yeah, frequently.
I just wanted to clear that for myself.
No, it depends on the scene, and it depends on who you're working with. I mean, I'm quite fortunate. A lot of the jobs I do, I'm trusted to kind of do my thing, and I'm left to it. Sometimes you do have to work with specific ideas that the clients have, but ultimately I am the realizer of the client's wants and wishes, and I will come on to a job for maybe 2 or 3 weeks at the end. They might have been making the film, TV show, especially the film, for years. So actually their vision is the vision of the film, and I'm only the facilitator. So you have to subjugate your ego a bit to kind of realise what they want from the project.
What's another one? What's the most enjoyable project you've actually worked on? You found out lots of new things, and it was a real joy to actually do.
I mean, you know, the cliche is the cliche is, and every job you do learn a bit on, and that is a cliche. But the highlights have been, I mean, the Sherlock, Tinker Tailor. We were given so much space by the clients, especially the director of Tinker Tailor was so lovely and just let us do our thing and came in and said, I like that, I don't like that, I want to. And but we were allowed to do so much, and if we had an idea and we told him, he would let us do it. So yeah, Tinker Tailor was brilliant. Sherlock, brilliant. I've been very, very lucky, I have to say.
So what do you think your toughest job was, and why was that?
The toughest job. I mean, the Sherlocks are tough because you're making a film in the timescale of a BBC drama, and BBC dramas are a very, very tight timescale. They're tough, they're enjoyable, but they are all 14-hour days and a lot of blood, sweat and tears to get where we get to.
Okay, for your techies out there, what is your favourite top five Pro Tools shortcuts that you use with every day?
Right to all enabled. Preview, and I can actually go through them. Trim to all enabled, right to all enable, the back button on my icon, and save as, which I've programmed as a little shortcut.
Yeah, you can do that in the keyboard preferences, can't you?
Because yeah, exactly.
There isn't one.
Yeah, that's it. Save as, because I know. Do you really want to do that? Yeah. I better do a save as. Oh, it sounds rubbish. Let's go back to previous version. Oh, I saved it.
Yeah, definitely. Let me think here. Musical cues play an important part in a story and how they tell it. How much do you judge to take the levels up and down to make the dialogue and the atmosphere work in it? You know what I mean? Does the music take over from the dialogue? Does the dialogue need to be a more?
I mean, in terms of, I still approach mixing like a punter. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, the punters listen to films, TV stuff. You listen to dialogues, music, and effects. And there's no denigration of effects. They're as everything's as important as everything else. But people will listen to dialogues and music as the emotional. They are the emotional deliverer of the project. So the script and the music's a visceral, a very visceral kind of delivery of emotion. So they are key. The dialogue's absolutely above and beyond, hence a lot of problems with programs where people have said they can't hear the words. Yeah. The main frustration, the main thing you hear about sound is, I can't hear the words. That's the main complaint. So you know how important dialogues are. Nobody ever says, oh, I didn't like the Foley. Nobody ever says, oh, I didn't think the room tone. The main thing is I can't hear the words. So the dialogues are key, if they have to be, unless it's a scene like the David Lynch film Twin Peaks, where they're in a club and you can't hear them deliberately as a disorientating factor. So dialogues are key. Music is an emotional deliverer. And that's my job, is to kind of to feel your way through. Is the music loud here? Is that serving the emotion? And in a Sherlock, the effects are loud in places, and then all the effects get muted, and the music takes over. Is that the emotional deliverer? The effects telling the story, and that's what I spend a lot of my life doing.
That actually quite brings you nicely on to the next question. What's your thinkings about the loudness war and the normalisation that's going on at the moment?
Well, I'm just starting to mix with the R128.
You are, yeah?
Yeah, so I'm now delivered R128 for about 6 months, which is an absolute, you know, I personally think is working very well. I had some issues with the BBC not transmitting the R128s correctly for a few months, where it's a little bit depressing because everything was coming out very low. Yeah. But since they've started broadcasting what I think is the correct level, It's good. I mean, it does seem to be you've been to expand your palette a bit.
Because people are so fed up of adverts blowing their ears off in between the films.
Well, when I used to mix for ITV, I mixed with about a 2 dB dynamic range by the end.
Really? Is that what we had?
Because I mean, I had 8. I could do dialogues at ppm 4 and go up, but I used to mix with dialogues about ppm 4, 5. And the peaks at ppm 6, and it would get broadcast and sound quieter than everything else around it. And in the end, I just ended up mixing louder and louder and louder.
You didn't tell anybody.
I didn't tell you. And just, well, I was still in ppm 6, so I just delivered these incredibly compressed mixes, which sounded much better compared to the content on ITV around it. Whereas now this R128 has allowed me to mix my dialogues. I mean, the perception of the volume of something
it's only perception,
it's based on dialogues. So my dialogues are now as loud as the continuity announcers. So nobody thinks the programme's quieter, but my peak is way above everything else, which is great. You know. Just
because you used to work for Dolby Atmos, your views on it?
It's probably the bit about the object-based mixing where you pick your sounds out and you play them back in the cinema with your pan data is probably the way we will all be mixing in X amount of years. And in fact, I can see a move now with Dolby Atmos and Avid on board and AMS on board that I think we are going to object. Well, yeah, I suppose it's object-based mixing.
5.1, it's on its way out now. 7.1. People have still only got TVs, and the new thing is sound bars. I mean, until people in their houses have got a real surround system, or maybe a dedicated room like some celebrities have, I mean, I don't think people are really gonna feel what the sound is really doing, unless you go to a cinema. I mean, yes, everyone should go to the cinema, but all this hard work you're doing in Sherlock and that, and it's just coming out of a small little sound bar or a flat screen TV, it's like all that work, but the people are really not hearing what you're really doing.
Well, you say that, and there is a lot of hard work that goes into it, but ultimately on Sherlock, we review it on a crappy stereo TV.
Oh.
And actually, we take our mix notes from that, because I still think you don't hear it, you don't hear the detail, but actually in a funny way, I mean, I do nearly everything in 5.1, but actually in a funny way, not that I don't care about the big speakers, but I'm actually more interested in telling the drama.
Yeah,
so I'm more interested in making sure the Foley fits in, the ADR fits in, the music's as loud, the sound design is interesting. And I actually think you do subjectively hear those details, and the playback medium, you tune out a lot of the crap. I mean, you know, I review all my TV stuff on the worst TV we can find in the building. Apart from the slightly depressing first minute, you start to tune it out and you start listening to it as a show. So actually, you know, I think the technical considerations become minor for the artistic considerations after a while.
Right, just quick, and there's another one. Like, in the last year, have you learned anything new about the way you work, or Pro Tools, or your workflow? Something that's like surprised you, or someone else has told you.
There was something massive and I completely forgot. There was something recently I was like, really? Is that and I can't remember what it is, which is brilliant, isn't it? No, I mean, it's all, I mean, as I work, I mean, I suppose it's just the psychology of dealing with people, really. That's kind of, it's always a...
It is 80% people skills in studio and engineering and
it's
the
just
media.
It's just the discovery of going, oh, that's why you wanted that like that. And then you see the end result and you go, okay, yeah, great, you know, that's...
So when you left school, what did you actually want to do?
I think it was predominantly music, but actually after a stint doing music, I found it actually turned me off of music. So I stopped listening to it, which was actually a passion, which was a bit aggravating. And then that's when I kind of went into the Dolby thing, and then kind of stumbled on a whole other world, which just seemed kind of quite exciting.
Well, just a quick one. I don't know how long we got left. How much feedback was it Paul McGuigan?
Paul McGuigan, yes.
Yeah, for Sherlock have when he was doing the mixing. Was he overseeing it, or did he leave you and trust you to do it?
He was in for a lot of the final mixing, yeah, but he was very specific.
Do you feel that's a lot of pressure?
You say, yeah, but I mean, that's your job. You work with, you know, it's his show. He was on it for months and months and months, and he worked with the script writer. And I mean, he was very specific about everything. Apparently, there was a massive discussion about the wallpaper in the flat. He was down to that level. He was very specific about the way every single element of the show needed to be, which is why he's such a good director, because he's just completely forensic about everything, from the clothes to the wallpaper to the sound to the music to the performance. Everything. So good directors are just forensic about everything, because that's kind of their job. So actually it's fun working in a team where everyone's paying that much attention to everything.
Another one for the techies. Favourite plugins?
Currently, the Oxford suppressor is my tip for the top.
Time.
Yeah, I love the Oxford suppressor.
Yeah.
That's a big one at the moment.